It's now time for our featured speaker of the afternoon, and to introduce her to you is Vice President for Service, Laura Rehrman. Laura.
Please join me in welcoming a local visionary for us, Ada Healey.
Thank you, Laura. And Laura's actually a tenant in one of our buildings, so she has a vested interest in me doing a good job up here this afternoon. So South Lake Union, we chose the title "Evolution of a Neighborhood" to describe what has happened in South Lake Union in the last 10 years or so. And I think it's really important to really set the context for you before I get into the meat and bones of my remarks. South Lake Union is one of Seattle's oldest neighborhoods, and at one time, Bill Boeing built airplanes down on the lake, and the Ford Company built Model Ts down at a plant there. And at a certain point, the innovators left, and the innovators were replaced by parking lots and gas stations and strip clubs. But now South Lake Union is being hailed as one of Seattle's hot new neighborhoods. And how did that happen? Well, the short answer really is the innovators came back. And they came back on multiple levels, and multiple parties were really involved in this renaissance. Initially, Fred Hutch Cancer Research Center made a decision to site its new facility down in South Lake Union. And Paul Allen, my boss, made a decision to support something called the Seattle Commons, which was an effort to build a giant park in the middle of the city. And as things happened, the voters decided they didn't like that idea, and they actually didn't like it twice. So they voted it down twice. They were firm in their view of the park. And so as a result, Paul Allen took a deed in lieu of foreclosure after the park failure, and he acquired 10 initial acres that were planned for the park at an initial investment of about $30 million. And because we actually liked the real estate so much, we decided 10 acres wasn't enough. So we bought more land, and we bought more land, and we bought even more land. And you can see from the slide, we currently own about 60 acres of land in South Lake Union, and still counting. You know, after we acquired this critical mass of land holdings, we started to reflect on, gee, we've got a lot of real estate, what are we going to do with it? And what made sense, as I said, we turned back to innovation, which was really the foundation of South Lake Union in its early history. And so we formed a series of partnerships with the city, with multiple tenants, and with the community. And from there, we developed a shared vision for the neighborhood, rolled up our sleeves, and got to work. So basically, we came up with 4 big ideas, and everything that has occurred in South Lake Union really has rolled up underneath these 4 big ideas. The first was create a new economic engine to generate new jobs and to produce tax revenue. The second was to develop a mixed-use neighborhood with activity 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. The third was to promote a transit and pedestrian-oriented neighborhood, make it a great place for walking around and for using public transportation. And the fourth was to create a model for sustainability, not just smart buildings, but really a different lifestyle. So, what does our report card look like so far? Today, the vision of South Lake Union is finally taking shape. It's no longer an area that you drove through, and I know many of you probably have driven through it for many years, but hopefully it's an area you want to drive to. It's a success story about reinventing places, about embracing history, and ultimately about Seattle's downtown moving north. It's a neighborhood, we believe, that reflects Seattle's values and what the community wants. It's pedestrian and bike friendly. It has access to the lake. It has great, convenient public transportation. It has cultural features, and it has authentic amenities. While every initiative has taken more time than we would have hoped, progress has been very good so far. And that's because many, many people have supported the vision, and many, many people have benefited from its success. So first, let me turn to the economic engine part. Despite the recession, there's no news there. South Lake Union is a bright spot in our local economy. It's a magnet for new jobs, and it's a magnet for residents. And hey, we still have cranes. And those cranes are building buildings that have tenants in them, which is another good thing. Since 2001, there has been nearly $2.8 billion in public and private investment in South Lake Union. That is $1 billion. And the lion's share of that investment has actually come from the private sector. At the last Rotary, I think I spoke in 2002, we talked about a vision for life sciences research in South Lake Union. Now, the Fred Hutch, UW Medicine, PATH, Seattle Biomed, Novo Nordisk, NanoString, VLST, and Children's Hospital, to name a few, make up a growing cluster of organizations involved in global health and life sciences research. In addition to the thriving biotech community, there's also a growing group of other companies located in South Lake Union, a petri dish for the creative class and a who's who of leaders in technology, healthcare, retail, and design services. Last, but certainly not least, Amazon.com will start moving its corporate headquarters to South Lake Union this month. The renderings you see on the PowerPoint are actually renderings of their new headquarters building. Amazon is a phenomenal Seattle success story, and they will bring thousands of existing as well as new jobs down to South Lake Union. The main headquarters is about 1.7 million square feet. It's comprised of 11 different buildings. 2 of those buildings were actually historic renovations. And Amazon has recently actually committed to almost another 200,000 square feet in South Lake Union. So their total footprint will be just under 2 million square feet, which is, for those in the business, a heck of a lot of real estate. Actually, 4,000 construction workers were used to build the Amazon.com new headquarters. And those are good jobs at union wages with good benefits, which in this challenging economy is very good for the entire region. Currently down in South Lake Union, there are about 16,000 permanent employees working today. And with Amazon, as well as the other tenants that we are anticipating that will move down to South Lake Union and grow their organizations, that number will almost double in the next 5 years to 30,000 workers. And as I mentioned, there's an economic benefit beyond just jobs. It's tax revenue. And if you read the newspapers and follow what's going on down in Olympia, all government agencies today are really focused on tax revenue. Paul Summers, which is an economist from the University of Washington's Business School, prepared a report in 2004 around jobs and tax revenue coming out of the South Lake Union development. And his forecast landed on a total of $1.3 billion in new tax revenue through 2025. And again, that's a B as in billion. So again, a heck of a lot of money. Now let me turn to talk about mixed-use neighborhood. From the beginning, our goal was to encourage development that would be 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so that we had activity during the day as well as at nights and on weekends. So South Lake Union is busy during the day with office and lab workers, and it's also busy at night with residents, with retail, with at nights and on weekends, and recreation down at Lake Union Park. And as everybody knows, with activity comes safety and energy at the street level. South Lake Union is also one of Seattle's oldest residential neighborhoods, but up until recently, there had been very little new residential development since the 1920s. Now, there are 3,000 residential units down in South Lake Union with more than 5,000 residents. And this number is actually expected to double by 2020, which will, of course, take the evening and weekend population up pretty dramatically. And contrary to popular opinion, or popular perception, I suppose, the housing is very diverse. You know, one of our goals was to make sure that South Lake Union was accessible to people from a variety of different income levels as well as demographics. The housing down there is both for rent and for sale. It's for young and for old, and it's at a variety of different price points. You know, most people don't know this, but nearly half of all the apartments in South Lake Union and a third of all the homes are affordable to people making $65,000 or less. In addition, we've committed to a diverse retail mix with local, regional, and national retailers. So the street level feels authentic and not like Pacific Place or South Center. Not that there's anything wrong with those two locations, but we were seeking something a little bit different. And we actually like to partner with our retailers, and everybody hopefully saw a card on your chair when you came in, which is our South Lake Union card, which has numerous offers for a number of the retailers down in South Lake Union. So if you find yourself down there, you want to check out some of the restaurants or shops, please pull out your we call it the SLU card. So please pull that out. The other important initiative is how do we support the building of community, and there's lots of different ways of doing that. But as we've thought about it, what's the best way to build community? Well, you throw parties. And if you got a lot of people working and living down there, you need to throw big parties. So in South Lake Union, we have our annual block party where everybody comes together on a Friday afternoon and sort of celebrates the neighborhood and has a good time. We actually also have a cinema on the lawn where we blow up a big movie screen and people come out and watch movies. We have a farmer's market now. We've partnered with Pike's Place Market to have a farmer's market. And there are also numerous events down at Lake Union Park. Now let me turn to public transportation and people-friendly streets. The Seattle streetcar line opened in December 2007, which was another example of a successful public-private partnership. It carries 1,500 riders a day, which is actually well above the city's initial projections for ridership. The streetcar has helped South Lake Union achieve one of its goals, which was to become a transit-friendly environment. The streetcar connects Lake Union, all of the workers and residents down in that area, to light rail and to our regional transit system. The city is actually very focused on expanding the streetcar network, and the first phase is actually fully funded through the Sound Transit initiative. The second streetcar line will connect the International District, First Hill, and Capitol Hill neighborhoods together. How have we further activated the streets, which again was one of our goals, beyond the eclectic retail amenities that I already mentioned? Well, we've incorporated public art into a number of our projects. And we've tried to use mature landscaping and encouraged our restaurant tenants to offer outdoor seating, weather permitting, of course. We do live in Seattle. And we have also embraced some design guidelines for Terry Avenue that the city has put forward. The design guidelines call for a very wide sidewalk, 31 feet, which is almost twice the typical sidewalk. Benches for people to relax, enhanced landscaping and trees, special pavers to make the sidewalk interesting, and bike racks to, again, encourage different types of transit. And so all you need to do is add a few people, and what do you have? You have a great street scene. Last but not least is a sustainable community. And sustainability is not just about smart buildings, although we're trying to deliver those. It's about the smart use of resources. South Lake Union is participating in the U.S. Green Building Council's Lead for Neighborhood Development pilot program. This is a national program. The LEAD program promotes neighborhoods that reduce reliance on cars, provide convenient access to jobs and services by walking or public transit, and reduces resource consumption. We hope to hear later this year about how we measured up in that criteria. The city is cautiously optimistic that we'll wind up between silver and gold in terms of that designation. Successful neighborhoods also have a lot of open space. All three of South Lake Union's parks have been renovated. All three have been renovated through public-private partnerships, and all three have become safer, more inviting, and more accessible. And we believe they have become assets to the entire region. Lastly, what was also important to us, again, we talked about the history of South Lake Union, and we wanted to preserve as much of that character as was possible. So we've worked with the city to save historic buildings that merited saving. We've actually preserved 3 old brick historic buildings. We've incorporated those into new projects, and we've committed to preserve a 4th historic building. It's a terracotta building. We've actually disassembled it, and it's sitting in a warehouse, and when the Mercer Corridor work is done, we'll put it back together. And what's next? You know, when I was here 8 years ago, I showed you some watercolor slides of the Mercer mess and what it actually could be with a little bit of an investment and some elbow grease. And I'm happy to report today the project is actually fully funded for fixing the Mercer mess. Demolition is starting this month, and full-scale construction will start later this summer. Fixing the Mercer mess is a project supported by the governor, by our new mayor, Mike McGinn, by our city council, by the state legislature, by numerous community groups, transportation advocates, organized labor, business, residents. And it really represents an example of what can get done if we work together. The improvements will reduce regional congestion, improve mobility for pedestrians and bicyclists, improve traffic flow and reconnect neighborhoods, and also improve access to the new Lake Union Park, which is, again, a $30 million public-private partnership. And lastly, the improvements to the Mercer Corridor will really serve as an enabler for the viaduct tunnel solution. Now, the last point I just want to cover is the proposed South Lake Union upzone. Seattle has 6 urban centers, and they're the backbone of the city's growth management plan. The comprehensive plan directs 60% of all future residential growth and 70% of all future employment growth to these 6 urban centers, and South Lake Union is one of those 6 centers. The question isn't really whether we as a region are going to grow. We hope we grow to sustain our economy and sustain our tax base, but is how we will grow and whether we can grow and create livable communities in that process. As we have thought about the potential for an upzone, we've studied some other cities around the country and the world, and so we've selected some images from neighborhoods that we think are pretty spectacular. There's a couple of images of Battery Park City in Lower Manhattan, which I lived in New York for many years, and this was really a fantastic place to hang out and live. Lakeshore Drive in Chicago. And then there are 2 images of Vancouver, BC, and the waterfront, and what has happened to the development there. These are great people places. They're full of energy. They're safe. They're accessible. There's lots of public space. They're really spectacular. Allowing greater height in urban areas, such as South Lake Union, will provide for more building diversity, a better pedestrian environment, quality open space, and ultimately, because there's some compensation to the city for the additional height that comes with the new development, ultimately supports affordable housing. If we don't go up, then we're going to go out. And going out requires more resources, more driving, more road building, and ultimately a bigger carbon footprint. Locating a critical mass of people around major streets, transportation, and parks will encourage the use of public transportation and will also further support a 24/7 activity and enhance the safety of our entire community. The city, the community, and multiple South Lake Union stakeholders are currently working on the next wave of South Lake Union's growth. We're probably about a year and a half away before City Council takes up any action on the potential upzone, and the EIS process is just now getting underway. So I guess to wrap up my remarks, a lot of people, and maybe even some in this audience, thought we were crazy 8 years ago. And, reflecting back, maybe we were. But thankfully, there were enough other crazies out there that embraced the South Lake Union vision such that we collectively have been able to accomplish everything that I have shared with you today. I would argue at this point that the South Lake Union stakeholders, and as I mentioned, there are really multiple parties, have proved the concept. It's no longer will South Lake Union happen, but rather what will it look like and how long will it take? And in the spirit of community collaboration, and no idea is a bad one, we really welcome everybody's involvement and feedback into our efforts. I think that that has really contributed to the success to date. You can stay in touch with us by visiting our Discovery Center. It's there at the intersection of Westlake and Denny. Or we've got two websites, discoverslou.com or Vulcan Real Estate. And then we actually have in the new world of media, we have a Facebook and Twitter page. So please come Twitter us or Facebook us or, whatever the lingo is. Josh Lackey is in charge of all that. So thank you very much.
We have time for a few questions, so if our mic folks could find you question askers, we'll get going.
Ada, thank you very much for speaking today.
Yes.
You mentioned the commons right from the beginning. Could you speculate a little bit about what it would look like today had we had a commons, and what you've done looks like a tremendous success. I'm just wondering what the alternative would have been.
I hesitate to speculate on anything, frankly. And I wasn't living here at the time the commons was put forward. I mean, ultimately, I personally think having a big park in the middle of Seattle would have been fantastic. I mean, if I had lived here at the time, I likely would have supported it. But it wasn't the will of the people, and I think at the time maybe people had a lot of anxiety around. We don't want to really support a big real estate development project, and of course, ultimately, that was kind of where it wound up. But I personally would have thought a big park in the middle of the city would have been fantastic. Yes, sir.
Hi. I was wondering about the size and square footage of a lot of the residential facilities y'all are making. Typically, I've seen 1,400 feet and smaller. That's kind of hard for like 2 kids or 3 kids, and the ones that are that large are like $2 million. So, is there something that y'all are going to do to address that?
One of the challenges, and thank you for pointing it out, is how do we produce housing that accommodates families. The other challenge is how do we get families to really want to live in the close-in urban areas, and it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg. Many families that we speak to have concerns about the school options, And they also, again, have concerns about the amount of square footage that they need to exist. And so, to date, we haven't found a sufficient market to really cause us to be confident to deliver 3- and 4-bedroom units in projects, just because the demand for that isn't there yet. We would love to have more families living in South Lake Union, and the parks certainly help support that. And to the extent the Seattle School District would be able to site a new school facility down in Lake Union would be terrific as well. But it's a struggle, and if anybody's got any good ideas, we'd love to hear them.
When you're old, you're automatically a historian, and I'm old. I served on the Commons Committee, and I'll just maybe answer some questions. I think we owe a debt of gratitude to Paul Allen for his generous gift to us in the beginning, which stimulated the acquiring of property, but also to Joel Horn and a fellow named Fleming, who were wonderful two guys with inspiration to have gathered some of this land together that became the cornerstone of your development, and also was able to satisfy some of the contamination that was in some of that soil. And it was their doing and their effort. And I take nothing away from Paul Allen, because you've taken the ball and carried it magnificently to a wonderful place for all of us to enjoy. And the original concept did not include a big park. It included smaller parks. And those are coming to pass now in the same area.
Thank you for correcting me. Obviously, I wasn't here at the time, so thank you.
Following up on parks, and your presentation's been very interesting and very helpful. You talked about the upzone, I believe, and showed great pictures. But I am also noticing that while we didn't have the commons, we don't have a lot of green space in that area. If you got an upzone, would you proportionally increase the parks as well, green space parks?
Well, I actually think there's more green space in South Lake Union than there are in many of the other close-knit neighborhoods. I mean, Lake Union Park is about 12 acres. Cascade Park is about 2 acres, and Denny Park, which of course is one of Seattle's oldest park, is 3+ acres, I believe. So actually, in terms of square footage relative to land area, we have more open space than most other of the close-in neighborhoods. And the notion around benefits for additional height, one of the issues that City Council will get to contemplate is how those benefits are allocated. Ultimately, the development community, I think, has been willing to pay the city for extra height, but there are many important needs that are lined up to receive those benefits, whether it's affordable housing, whether it's parks and open space, whether it's incorporating very advanced resource utilization features into those buildings. I mean, to give you an example, for the Amazon.com project, the last 2 phases benefited from an upzone. There was almost a $7 million payment to affordable housing, which was one of the benefits. There is also some open space adjacent to one of the buildings, which is essentially all the private property. It's open to the public for. It's going to be a really nice open space, and then we've committed to Gold LEED certification, which is a very high standard in terms of the buildings and the resource utilization and how we sort of think about green development. And the last feature, again, had to do with Seattle's green factor, which again was around sustainability. So the puzzle is how you take the benefits and for lack of a better word, allocate them to the areas that where there's kind of a nexus between the upzone and the benefit. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's a little bit of the issue and the dynamic around the issue. Okay, I just got the hook, so thank you very much.
Ada, thank you so much for joining us today. The transformation of the South Lake Union neighborhoods is truly visionary, and we wish you and the entire Vulcan team the best of success in the coming months and years. Thanks again to all of today's program participants. Welcome again to Marin, and congratulations again to Okoye. Next week, April 7th, we'll be pulling up stakes and trekking a block north to the Grand Hyatt at 7th and Pine to hear from, most appropriately on World Health Day, Dr. Chris Elias, President and CEO of PATH, to share thoughts on public-private partnerships. Every few weeks, I take a detour around the old Joke Highway, probably to the relief to one or two of you, and this is one of those weeks. Like all of us, I draw inspiration from a lot of different places, but never thought one would be United Technologies Corporation. I thought the copy from one of their ads was kind of nice, so I'm going to share it with you. Most of us miss out on life's big prizes, the Pulitzer, the Nobel, the Oscars, Tonys, Emmys, but we're all eligible for life's small pleasures, a pat on the back, a kiss behind the ear, a full moon, an empty parking space, a crackling fire, a glorious sunset, hot soup, and a cold beer. So don't fret about copping life's grand awards. Enjoy its tiny delights. There are plenty for all of us. Have a great day. We'll see you next week. We're adjourned.
Seattle Rotary Online is made possible in part by a grant from First Choice Health, working with the Washington Health Information Collaborative to use technology to bring better health care to patients throughout the Pacific Northwest. First Choice Health.